So 1050. All right, on 1050, I think I'm going to review it because I made a reaction and the reaction was very light in substance, and I want to add a more substantive discussion to this. So 1050. My problem with 1050 comes down to clarity, right? And that's ultimately going to be like the theme of it. But before I get into that, I would like to talk about all the things that I liked about it. I liked Yamato's meeting Luffy when he descended to the ground. I thought that that was sort of something that a crew member of the Straw Hats would do, and I think that it was well earned. It's like Naruto. I hate to bring Naruto up into this, but it's like they say that when two shinobi clash, they understand each other immediately. Well, I feel that Yamato and Luffy have an understanding that comes from them just having a similar aim and fighting towards the same thing, right? Their actions show sort of built that relationship more so than talking. So it's nice to see her run over to Luffy as if like she was Zoro or Nami or whatever. So I like that part. I like I like what's going on with Momonosuke. I like the fact that he decided to keep things closed because to me that's a very first of all it's decisive and it's also an indication that things aren't over. But that's neither here nor there. We gotta wait and see for that. But mostly in terms of character, it's show that he was decisive, but he's also not going to be blinded by glitz and glamour of spectacle, right? Him seeing Kaido being defeated isn't simply enough to convince him that he wants to open up the doors. There has to be more to it. So that is, even though it may or may not be the right decision, and I think as far as the story goes, it's the wrong decision. As the story sort of shows itself. But as in terms of like a character decision, I thought it was very good, and it's also I think my main evidence as to why I think that things aren't over yet. And then there's the Toko and the Tinguyama part scene, and I really liked that. I thought that Oda was really going for a particular emotion with that, and it hit me in the feels, to be honest with you. And I think that's as far as I'll go with that. Anyway, so those are all the good things about it. Overall, I think the chapter was good. It's just the climax of the battle I felt brought the chapter down, and in some ways brought Wano down as a whole. And overall, before I even get into that, I think Wano was fine. I think that Oda did take on a lot more threads than he probably intended, and in order to do those threads justice, it would take about 12 years, which is simply time that he's probably not willing to spend. So I don't really fault him on that. So there's that. So I'm going to move on to my problems with this chapter. So overall, Luffy's fight was probably one of the most spectacular fights that I've seen in One Piece. The problem, though, is that it was also one of the most spectacular letdowns in the sense that the climax suffered from a lack of clarity. And I'll get into it. There's two types of clarity that it lacked in, and I'll use two different other fights as an example as to why there was a lack of clarity in this fight. Number one, if you look at Big Mom is not a zone. She's a paramecia. So you see every beat and every emotion in her face when she's being defeated. And it's pretty clear, where she's going in terms of like her psychology when she realizes that these young punks, these young whippersnappers who were wet behind the ears just beat the brakes off of her and she's tumbling to her demise, possibly her demise. And you see that, and it was way more effective and way more final. Even though this may not be final, it felt final. And I think that on that regard, she beat the interaction that Kaido had with Luffy on that front. I'm talking about the very end, the terminal part of the fight, right? The conclusion. I think that Big Mom's conclusion overall was better. Also, there's another type of clarity that I wish that Kaido had, that Big Mom definitely had, and another fight had. And I'm going to compare Kaido's fight with another fight that I think was done much better in the end. But Big Mom we all also knew what the heck happened to Big Mom, right? Law opened up, bored a giant hole into the earth. Kid and Law knocked the crap out of Big Mom until she fell into the hole. I know I'm kind of understating. And then it was pretty much a wrap for her, right? It was clear what happened. And ultimately it was better storytelling. It was better clarity as in regards to the resolution of that fight. It wasn't a bitter fight. It had a better resolution. So I'll put that there. But let's compare that to Kaido. But before we even do that, let's compare Kaido to another fight. A fight that I think had an even better conclusion than both of these. And that's 790, Doflamingo's defeat. Right? When Doflamingo got knocked the heck out by the King Kong gun, it was clear what happened to him, right? Dude got punched, he fell, he broke the earth folded over like it was a giant urban taco. You could just see just the effect of the punch that Luffy made, and you're like, oh crap, man, I never seen anything like this, right? And it was so clear when you saw the image, the iconic image that we all know from 790. It was obvious that whoever's on the wrong end of that ain't gonna be the same if he's still alive, right? If he is still alive, he's gonna come up with some severe learning disabilities. That's for dang sure. Like it was obvious what was going on with Doflamingo, right? It was clearly illustrated. That was not the case with Kaido, right? I'm not even sure what the heck happened to Kaido. Like I see that there was a dragon shaped print where he fell through, so I'm not sure if it's like a hollow part of the earth that he cracked, or if he's burrowing down because of the force of the punch, because it looks like he's in free fall, and I have no clue what the heck is going on. And then all we get on the surface is just like a tiny, relatively tiny dirt plume. I mean, okay, so there's no environmental effect of the punch, and the environmental effect that we do get, the eruption at the end, it it was so delayed that it's debatable whether or not that had an immediate connection to the punch that Luffy put down on Kaido anyway. So and it's a shame because the punch itself and Kaido's defense, they were adequately effective. And like I think I have to clarify. There's this rule in shonen, this unspoken rule in shonen manga and anime. Escalation is king, right? Every form of the story, the microcosm, the macrocosm, needs to be a form of escalation. Every arc needs to have a escalation pattern, and every individual saga needs to have an escalation pattern, and the overall story needs to be an escalation pattern, right? Right? The stakes should be constantly rising until the very end, right? There's no reason that something that happened in the past, like, for instance, Doflamingo, like, who was a subordinate of Kaido, by the way, should be more clear, more, you know, immediately effectual than something that happened much, much later with more powerful individuals. It doesn't make any sense. So that is ultimately my problem, right? Like, and One Piece is not immune to the escalation rule of shonen manga. In fact, One Piece is like one of the most clear examples of the escalation pattern that you see in shonen manga. The escalation is crazy in One Piece. In fact, that's one of the reasons why everybody loves this manga. It's like the stakes are way higher than they were when Luffy's adventures first started. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me that the defeat of Kaido by the hands of Luffy would be so unclear, right? Kaido was like free falling and it was like the Twilight Zone, and then he was in zone form, and I wish he was turned to human form much earlier in his fall, because I wanted to see that realization that he just got his behind beat by possibly Joy Boy. But you don't get that sense. He was just unconscious, and he just changed back to his human form right before he hit the magma, and he's just sitting there, and Big Mom's over there chilling in the magma, and we're supposed to believe that that's the end for them. I mean, these are Yonko. They casually cover themselves in fire and lava all the time, like it's Irish Spring soap. And I'm supposed to believe that a volcano, a little eruption, okay, it wasn't little, but little relative to them, is enough to beat them. It's like the conclusion of the fight undermines. Okay, let's say that this is a red herring. All right, if it is a red herring, then I'm not convinced. The red herring failed. Let's say it's not a red herring, then that's even worse. That means that the conclusion didn't match all the legendary escalation that we had up to the fight. The fight was constantly cranking up the stakes to a way that we've never seen ever in the history of One Piece, and then we're let down like this in the conclusion. I don't know, man. I think that the story's not over, but I wish that this chapter was just more conclusive, and I think it was just a problem of composition and a problem of basically the way things were illustrated that undermined all this. And that's ultimately my judgment for it. I'm interested to see what people have to say about it. Um, I'm far more ambivalent about the chapter than I had hoped because ultimately what happened to Kaido was a bit ambiguous. He looked like he was in the Twilight Zone for a moment. It was very surreal, and and you don't want surrealism when you're supposed to show something that's clear and definite and concrete, right? Surrealism is vague. Kaido's defeat shouldn't be vague, and even if you're going for some sort of vagueness, at least at least err more towards the side of making a red herring rather than just ultimately just making something that's underwhelming. And that's ultimately my judgment on this. I say judgment like I'm a judge or something, but you get what I'm saying. So I'm interested to hear what people have to say. So leave a comment if you would like. And that is all I have to say about this. So long.